Welcome back! In this video I'm going to unbox and review the G3 Plus Bluetooth smartwatch, which you can get from Gearbest for about $40. Now this is a great smartwatch packed with a lot of cool features, and there's a lot of novel features on here that we haven't seen on any of the other smartwatches that I've reviewed. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you like my unboxing videos in general, please consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll leave a link to my Patreon down below. I'll also leave a link to a gadget playlist down below so that you can check out my other unboxing videos. Right, let's get on with this unboxing. So No.1 kindly sent me this smartwatch to review, and it arrived after a couple of weeks after they said they'd send it, which I think is pretty standard delivery times from China. Now it's arrived in this sort of metal tin, which is, I'm afraid, a little bit dented, but it's not surprising considering it's come about 6,000 miles to the United Kingdom. And I suppose you're not going to be wearing the tin, are you? So it's not that important. And inside we've got the smartwatch, a micro USB to USB charging cable, and that's actually all that's in this. So it's going to have to be pretty self-explanatory, I think, because there's no instructions or anything. So let's take a look at the actual watch. Right, I think I'll zoom in. So it's got this circular face, which looks pretty nice. It's quite a simple design, but it looks quite technological, quite expensive. It feels quite nice. It's got a nice weight to it. I think at least some of it is actually made of metal, which is always nice. We've got these two buttons on this side. On the underneath, we've got the charging pins at the top here, and a heart rate monitor there as well, and a speaker to the right like that. Charging this watch is really straightforward. Obviously you just need to use this cable, and this is a little magnetic connector. But what I will say is you have to be sure that it's actually magnetically attached, and if there's any sort of strain on this cable, then it sort of disconnects from the charging pins like that. So you just have to make sure that it's sort of sat down on a table properly and actually magnetically connected. Nice normal watch strap here with a normal watch buckle. All in all, a pretty attractive watch. So I think it's time to turn it on and see what this watch actually does. So you turn this watch on by holding the button at the bottom until the screen turns on. And then, as is usual with a lot of these watches, this is the home screen. So I think this watch is in the same sort of family as the K88H in the software that it runs. So when you tap the screen, you get a choice of amazing different watch faces. My favourite actually is this one here. Now I've just watched a YouTube video online that actually says it's really easy to make your own watch faces for these. If you connect this via USB to your computer, you'll find folders that contain, I think, 5 different icons. You'll find a sort of face one, and ones for the different hands. If you make new versions of those, making sure they're obviously the right size and format, then you can just upload them onto the watch and make your own watch faces, which is really, really powerful. And that brings us nicely to the other great feature on this watch, which is that it's got a menu system we haven't seen on any of the other smartwatches we've looked at. We've got these small circular icons around the edge of the screen, and obviously we can swipe from right to left or left to right to scroll between these pages of icons. But another cool feature on this watch, and one that we haven't seen on any of the other watches that we've looked at, is that this bezel around the watch face here actually rotates. And if I rotate it, you can see that it's actually changing the position of the selected app on the watch face there. So this is actually a functional watch bezel, which is really unusual and quite a good idea, I think, because I think given that there's so many apps on each menu page and they're quite small, to poke with your finger might be a little bit tricky. So just to kind of rotate this like this to select what you want and then click the appropriate button to activate that function, I think that's a really cool feature. Of course you can, if you prefer, go into the menu settings and change it to the standard 4-app menu system, which we've seen, or which we see on most of the smartwatches. Right, let's take a look at some of these menu items. So on this first page of items, we've got a dialer, messaging, phone book, call logs. Now these are only going to work if you've got this tethered to an Android phone. While this watch will pair with an iPhone, you can't use these features with an iPhone. You have to rely on the notifications feature if you want to know whether you've got a text message or anything like that. So for full functionality, you really need to use an Android phone. We've also got a Bluetooth menu here. I've already paired this with my iPhone. We've got the notifications, which I'll show you in a minute. We've got app download, so this is basically a QR code which takes you to a website with a download link for the Android app and the iPhone app. Settings, there's a whole host of settings in here to do with the volume and the display, the screen brightness, how long the screen stays on for when you're not touching it. On the next page we've got a few things that require you to be paired by Bluetooth to your smartphone, so I'll show you those in a minute. We've also got voice memos, so you can make little audio notes for yourself, and this theme app controls which background you have basically. So on theme 3 you get this sort of blue or purpley background, theme 2 is this sort of bubbly background, and then theme 1 I believe is no background. This watch also has all the usual functions that we've come to expect on these smartwatches, including an alarm, and I happen to know that the alarms even work when the watch is turned off, because I had this watch turned off and at midnight it went off, so that's one thing to bear in mind. Quite good though really, because you don't really want an alarm to turn off when the watch isn't on. It's also got a calendar, so you can have your agenda for the day or whatever, or remind yourself of meetings that you've got. A calculator, so that if you're in a shop you can add up the price of something if you need to, and also a stopwatch, so if you're going running or you need to just time something, then you've got that facility as well. There's also a pedometer on this watch, so it uses the accelerometer in the watch to work out how many steps you've done. You can set like a daily goal. You can also keep a record or a history of times that you've gone walking, and by the looks of it you can also enter your height, weight and all that sort of stuff and age into here, so it can give you an estimate of the number of calories that you've burnt. So that's pretty good if you're into fitness. There's also a heart rate monitor on here, so if we turn the watch over there's a little light here which shines into your veins to measure your heartbeat. Now I'm not sure how accurate these are, but it's accurate enough to tell you whether or not your heart's beating fast or slowly. There's a sleep monitor as well, which also uses the accelerometer in the watch to see if you're moving your arms while you're asleep. Obviously here it says good because I'm not moving my arms much, but if I shake the watch around a lot, you can see now it says my sleep quality is poor, which is good, because if I was waving my arms around like that while I was asleep, it'd probably be some kind of medical emergency. And just like the pedometer app, it keeps a record of that, so you can look at your history of how you've slept. The watch has also got a sedentary reminder, which is basically just an alarm, so that if you're doing something quite sedentary, like sitting at a desk, it can remind you to get up and have a walk around, do some exercise. So the motion app basically just uses the accelerometer in the watch to detect certain hand movements, and you can make the watch do certain functions in response to them. So you can see, for example, flip to mute alarm, wake up gesture or whatever. And one which I've demonstrated quite a lot is the tilt to wake gesture. So if I enable that here, if the watch is off and tilted away from you and then you move it towards you, then it turns on again. And it's got this thing called Health Index, which I think is a little bit superficial actually. I don't think it actually does that much. Basically it asks you to enter your age, your sex, height and weight and all that. And then it does this sort of scanning thing here, but really all it can be doing is calculating your BMI, and also it measures your heart rate, so I don't really know why it takes so long to do this calculation. But it looks pretty cool as a feature, looks pretty futuristic, so I'm not going to complain too much about that. If you're on the home screen, you can get quick access to some of the settings on this watch. So if you swipe down from the top, you get this little screen that shows you the battery life indicator, the date and time. Also, it's got an aeroplane icon, which is to enable aeroplane mode, so it's going to turn off Bluetooth basically. Also, you can turn off Bluetooth, so I think they pretty well do the same thing. And there's also a mute button as well, in case you don't want your phone to make loud noises, say you're in the cinema or whatever. Okay, I think it's time to take a look at this watch when it's paired with an iPhone. So the app you'll need on your smartphone, be that an Android phone or an iPhone, is called MediaTek Smart Device. At least with the iPhone it takes a couple of attempts to get it to pair properly, but I mean it's quite straightforward. Find device, make sure that it's paired in the Bluetooth menu on the phone. Now it's paired, it's going to send notifications to the smartwatch. The MediaTek app doesn't do that much, but it does things like find device, so I don't know if you can hear it. but it makes the watch vibrate if you've lost it somehow. Alert, so there's lots of different settings here for which alerts will come up on the watch. Health data, so it syncs all that data into this app. An SOS call, I'm not sure what that is, but there's a few features on here, but most of the extra functionality is now available on the watch itself. So let's take a look at that. So my phone has sent a load of notifications to the watch, and if I click view down here, you can see these are all Facebook notifications. So as I said before, the dialer and messaging will only work if you've got an Android phone, but the phone book and the call logs will sync to this from an iPhone. And now we can use Bluetooth music, but I do have to say that I don't know if it's just my one, but the speaker is exceptionally quiet. Not a huge problem though, I don't think you really are going to be playing music through the watch, are you? There's also Bluetooth camera, so basically just clicking this activates the camera trigger, so that if I open the camera app on my phone, like that, if I press this, you can see, there we go, you can see that the screen's flashed because it's activated the camera trigger. And last but not least, we can now use the Siri function on here, so if I click on that, right, so let's ask him something. What is the weather like today? Now again, we're suffering from the speaker volume on this watch. It has actually successfully on my phone come up with the answer, so let's do it again. It tells me on my phone what the weather's like, but yeah, the speaker is remarkably quiet on here. So I've just checked and it turned out that No.1 has actually sent me a sort of demo unit of this G3 Plus smartwatch, and apparently the real G3 smartwatch doesn't actually have this speaker issue that mine's got. So you can disregard everything I've said about the speaker being too quiet. If you buy a proper G3 Plus smartwatch, you will be fine. So all in all, I think this is a pretty good watch for the money. I like the rotating bezel, I like the choice of watch faces, and the fact that it's so easy to upload your own watch faces onto this. I think it's quite a stylish watch, and it's got a lot of the same features as the K888 watch, so it fits quite nicely into that sort of range of watches. But anyway, that about wraps it up. I'll leave a link to this in the description box below if you want to check out this watch for yourself. I'll also leave a link to a smartwatch review playlist in case you want to check out any other unboxings, and I guess I'll see you next time for another unboxing and review.